Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at Traveler, the Infinity Suite. This is a new offering from Mongoose. It was published just a few weeks ago as of the making of this video. It was written by Martin Doherty, who always writes a good source book. And I'm going to do a couple of honest confessions right at the beginning of this look at this product. I almost didn't buy this product. I like Cluster Truck. The idea, the setting didn't really sit too well with me. It was nothing I was that interested. That's one confession. The other confession is I'm not a rocker. I never was. I never had that aspiration to become a rock band member or any kind of musically inclined person because I have no real musical talent. So I came close to not purchasing this one. And then I remembered Cluster Truck, which I almost didn't buy. And I remembered that I actually enjoyed a lot of elements in Cluster Truck beyond the base setting of Cluster Truck, being a trucker in space, which of course is Traveler. But so I kept that in mind, and I went, okay, let's give Infinity Suite a try. And I have to admit, the core adventure does not appeal to me at all. This is nothing I would run. This is nothing I would see my players being interested in. I've discussed it with them, and they've all kind of given it a head shake and said no, they wouldn't be interested in being in a game like that. But that being said, there are elements out of this that I absolutely can use, and I'm going to go into that a little bit. Because this is an adventure, I'm not going to be going through all of it because a lot of this stuff has to remain quiet so that your players can unveil it as they go. But the premise of the adventure is that you are a band flying aboard your modified ship, Proud Mary, and you are trying to create your magnum opus as a band, the Infinity Suite. This is going to be the greatest piece of music ever recorded, if only you could get the thing right. Interesting premise. The thing that really tipped it for me to go ahead and pick this up is that it's set in the islands sector, or island subsector rather, and then I like that because I like the islands. They're in the middle of the Great Rift. They're cut off from everything. They're not part of the Third Imperium. They're kind of a powder keg because of the different polities that are in there, and each wants to be more important than their neighbor. And the band, because they've done a few extra legal things, like swipe a bunch of money and their ship, have fled to the islands so that they have time to finish creating their masterwork. An interesting idea, and it's meant to be played tongue-in-cheek. You're supposed to have a lighthearted romp with this. Instead of people pulling guns and knives on each other, you're going to have an adventure where maybe somebody gets hit with a microphone or the microphone stand or something along those lines. It's going to be like a bar fight rather than to the death. Very similar, again, to Cluster Truck. I like what Mongoose is doing. They're kind of broadening the appeal of Traveler. And I have no problem with this. It's interesting. It's been an interesting two now experiences with Cluster Truck and Infinity Suite. So I'll go a little bit into the introduction, and there we go. It's just telling you where you are. It's going to be taking place sometime between 1105 and 1108. The Fifth Frontier War really isn't going to be an issue with this because you're in the island subsector, so not much is going to reach there. And then you've got which travelers would be suitable, and you can play. There you go. There's some of the artwork that's very typical for this. It's good artwork. I like it. Nice and solid. The background of the band is working on a concept album called the Infinity Suite. They believe this is the most groundbreaking and important piece of music ever created. And then the Traveler's introduction, and you can be members of the band. You can be the leads of the band. It's a five-piece band, five-member band. So you can either be them, or you can be the promoter. You can be a roadie. You can be a lot of different things. You don't have to be the band members if you don't want to. That's kind of an interesting take too. And the other thing I liked about this book is they have a way to show how broadly appealing a piece of entertainment is. You can use effect, and there's a system called out in this book that talks about using effect to tell how the audience is receiving your material. And that's how you know you're getting closer and closer with the Infinity Suite. That was kind of neat. I like that. And there's a lot about the entertainer occupation in here. So there's a couple of good things in that regard. I would absolutely use a lot of this as background material if I was doing a traveler adventure and I was at a casino or any kind of recreational area. This band could absolutely be appearing, and they could, just be interacting with the travelers as NPCs. That has a lot of use out of here. Plus, the old islands, or the islands rather, information is really good. Now, the islands information, the core stuff, is presented in one or two other traveler sources. But that being said, it's got some individual touches for this particular adventure. So it's definitely worth getting for that too. So I found a couple of reasons to use this. One, to use the player characters in this as NPCs in a future game. And my game in Avastin, in District 268, where my players were traders turned murder hobos turned entrepreneurs, have kind of had a hand in starting up a casino at the High Port. And one of the things I could see this being is this band could come play the casino. So I kind of thought of some fun stuff while I was reading this, and I thought of ways I could use this. Because frankly, once I put the money out for it, I was determined not to have it be wasted. So I went into this hoping to like the adventure enough. And the adventure's fine. If you want to play a rock band in the style of the 70s or 80s, this is it. This is absolutely. I kept thinking Spinal Tap in space. When I first started reading this, all I could hear was Spinal Tap and the maneuver drive going to 11 and all that kind of stuff, and them playing Stonehenge during their scene. And I love the movie. This is Spinal Tap. I haven't seen the newer one that was out a year or two ago, but I do love the original, and I did think of some fun stuff with that. But again, whole campaign, and one of my guys is kind of a rocker, and he wasn't all that interested in actually playing this. Now, I had a player years ago who was in a band who would have been all over this. Oddly enough, it was a guy that didn't care much for Traveler. So had something like this been available, I might have been able to hook him into Traveler a little bit. So I'm going to go a little further into the book. It talks about trivial characters and their area of competence. I've taken a look at that. This is becoming a standard in Mongoose, and I like that. You don't have to whip up a full NPC with skills and everything. You can just put down security guard, give him some base stats, and maybe gun combat 2 and streetwise 2, and then you're done. You don't have to worry about it anymore. So I did like that. It's becoming a standard thing in Traveler, which is fine. We get the musician skill package, so you get all these skills to choose from for your characters, which is also pretty good, and then the campaign overview. And again, this campaign is designed to be kept lighthearted and fun. You're not saving the galaxy, you're saving your own skin. You have done some extra legal stuff. You owe your record label a lot of money and arguably a ship, and you have to make your magnum opus happen before the powers that be catch up with you, which is, of course, why you went to the islands to begin with. So I liked all that stuff. I'm going to take a look at the islands information because there's nothing I'd really be giving up by doing that. Before I go to the islands, I do want to take a quick look at the band. This is the band itself. That's what they look like. And then we get a breakdown of each of the rockers that are involved. And again, I can absolutely see these as NPCs in a game. And then you've got your manager, and then a couple of roadies, and you've got a pilot for your ship, and then your technic engineer. She's got all the pyrotechnics for the band. So interesting. I liked it. Again, I can see these as NPCs. So here we are. We're in the islands subsectors. They lie within the region of very low star density known as the Great Rift. They display a standard distribution of star systems and objects within them, but are cut off from the rest of the galaxy by a wide gulf of space. And then it goes into the history of the islands. Why did the band come here to the islands? Well, it's out of the Third Imperium, and the band owes a lot of people a lot of money in the Third Imperium. So they kind of made a run for it into the islands. They were able to jury-rig some extra fuel tanks and get themselves there. And now that they're there, they're spreading their music all around. It's interesting because the band starts here with people never having heard of them, and that's where the whole fame part of it comes in. There's a lot addressing individual fame and what your social status would be in areas where you're not known, and then how the audiences are responding to you as you're playing your different music and your different sets. Are you just a garage band with delusions of grandeur? Are you a fantastic band that is the greatest ever? Are you somewhere in between? And that's what the effect system in here can tell you how you're doing. It's kind of neat, and it would also apply if I wanted to apply this to, say, a book that had been written, or poetry, or a hollow film, or stage acting. You could use all that to be represented by the system they have in here. So that was pretty neat too. I like the idea. So we take a look at the history of the islands, how they were colonized. They were colonized by sublight ships initially, and probably the ancients, because there were humans there already. And there we get the shipping transits in the islands, contact with the Third Imperium, and then more shipping transits, and then the powers in the island. And this is neat too, because again, a lot of this is shown in other books, but it's important to have it here. I don't want to have to refer to other books I may or may not own. I do own them, but that's not the point. If I bought this cold and I wanted to run it, I would need the information. So it's all called out here. And we get a nice look and an updated look at some of the powers of the islands, which I did like too. So, pretty neat stuff. I've always loved the islands. I've never run a campaign. I was in a campaign that started in the islands back in the mid-'80s, I want to say. But it never went anywhere. We did about 2 sessions, and then that group kind of broke up. But we get some power groups in there, languages in the islands, and then we get a look in the individual stuff, the old islands, the new islands, and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go into a ton of that either. So that's all of the book I'm going to look at. We do get a couple of new pieces of equipment. Some band equipment. We get a couple of, we get some different pyrotechnic kind of stuff. We get some interesting stuff in here. But it's definitely going to be for a specific taste as written. Now, if you're not looking to play this as written, there is a ton of stuff to take out of this book and transplant into other Traveller games. In fact, I was reading this, and I kind of had an eye that I was reading a Journal of Travelers' Aid Society, because I kept dropping in going, ooh, I can use this, ooh, I can use this. And I jotted down a few notes of some stuff I want to add to different games that I'm thinking of doing. And for that, it was worth getting. So, Traveller, the Infinity Suite, will you write that epic piece of music? I'm not denigrating this book in any way as far as folks that want to play a rock band in space. This is absolutely a vehicle to do that. It's just that the premise didn't speak to me, but a lot in this book did, and I am glad I picked it up. But that's all I've got to say today about Traveller, the Infinity Suite. Let me know what you thought. Is this the greatest thing Traveller's put out in 2 years? Best since Cluster Truck? Do you want to see Traveller continue with these trends? I kind of like it. I'm actually hoping for a James Bond type book, where it's an actual adventure, not just a static NPC class or player character class. But I wouldn't mind seeing some kind of espionage or anything, as long as we're doing different subjects that are, more narrow focused. I wouldn't mind seeing something on that. So I've just thrown my head in the ring for that one. But let me know what you thought. Comments are always welcome. Please go ahead and leave them below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Tell your friends. Let's keep growing the channel. Let me know if you're going to pick up the Infinity Suite and if you'll be running it as written. I'd really be interested in seeing that. But that's all I've got to say today on page 121. Oh, please take a look at the Patreon. See if you can help me out there. That's it for today. I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you next time on page 121.